I'm a small business owner, and I know how important every penny is to the business owner. The unfortunate part of marketing and advertising is that sometimes it doesn't work. And that's what keeps me up at night. Like, we can do everything perfectly and it may not work. The key is you have to be able to have access to the data and the metrics to tell you that story. Let's say you're spending $2,000 a month. Well, you don't want to spend $24,000 in a year to find out something was a failure. You want to spend $6,000 to find out that it was a failure.
Welcome to People at Pyramid, a weekly podcast that introduces you to your fellow Pyramid Club members. My name is Vince Quinn, the Content Studio Director, and I'm here to showcase the stories of your fellow members, explore the ways that they can help you and your network, and make it easy for you to connect. With that, let's meet our next member. All right, so Jason, first, if you could just introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Vince. I'm Jason Zucker. I own ROI-On Marketing. Been in business since 2011 here in Philadelphia, and I've been a member of the Pyramid Club for about 4 years.
And give us a little background, because you have a lot of things going on. Entrepreneurs Roundtable, which we'll talk about a little bit here at the club, but first, let's start with ROI-On Marketing. So just tell us a little bit more about the business.
It's kind of a unique business in that we have two major pillars, right? And they seem like they don't go together until you kind of see it fleshed out. So we're a marketing company, and we solve two major problems that businesses face. The first major problem that we solve is, how many times have you spoken to a business owner and they say, I'm spending money on advertising and marketing, and I have no idea if it's working or not. I've spent this. Did it work? Did it not work? Well, that's a problem that we are uniquely qualified to solve. We have a kind of proprietary technology that allows us to trace any leads or sales all the way back to what marketing activity generated it. The second problem that we solve for businesses and sales leaders is closing the deal. So we had situations where we were helping clients generate leads. They were spending $20,000 a month in advertising, and come to find out they're keeping track of these leads on an Excel spreadsheet for a 12-person office. So we kind of looked at that as like, well, how do we prove our worth if they're not closing the deals? So it forced us to kind of get into building out CRM systems for our clients, which then in turn took us into developing what's called an automated sales assistant. And what that does is it takes the sales process and it eliminates 60% of the tasks that salespeople normally have to do, allowing them to be much more efficient.
So that's great to have that full control of out front and getting the message out there and tracking what's working and what's not. Obviously, you get to refine everything from that, but then also the sales side too. I mean, I get that because with podcasting, you see that a lot. Hey, we're making this content. We're putting it on all these different platforms. You're talking to the right kind of people, but the sales system thing is not something that we do. And I really like it. It's very sharp.
It's actually it's a tip to tail approach, right? We're going to help you generate the leads over here, but we're also going to make sure you close the deals so that I can keep my job with you.
It makes sense, right? And if that's what it takes, how long did it take did it start that way? Did you evolve into that? What did that look like?
I mean, like most businesses, it's an evolution. And it started all the way back, I would say 2018, 2019. We had a great client. They were spending $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And we had a great relationship. And he said, Jason, I gotta end our contract, which was shocking to us because we felt like we were doing a great job. He says, I'm spending this money. I have no idea what we're getting for this, if this is working or not. And it was kind of that moment that I said, I'm never going to have that conversation with the client again, which kind of forced me to say, okay, well, how do we solve that problem? How do we sit with a client at the end of the month and say, you spent $5,000, here's how many times your phone rang, here's how many email leads you got, and here's how many deals you closed.
That's really powerful. And what's interesting is, because with that, like I said, you can accelerate everything. You know what's working. You know what's not. You're getting people in and supporting the sales side of it. So it is holistic, tip to tail. But as much as that's all comes together, you mentioned something before we recorded for the idea of at some point businesses should stop marketing. So not something I would expect to hear from you. What's the situation with that?
At the end of the day, I'm a business owner, and I'm a small business owner, and I know how important every penny is to the business owner. And the unfortunate part of marketing and advertising is that sometimes it doesn't work. And that's what keeps me up at night. Like we can do everything perfectly and it may not work. The key is you have to be able to have access to the data and the metrics to tell you that story. The last thing you want to do, is spend, if let's say you're spending $2,000 a month. Well, you don't want to spend $24,000 in a year to find out something was a failure. You want to spend $6,000 to find out that it was a failure. Without having those metrics and without having access to that data, you're just wasting money. So what I would tell people is until you know definitively what is working and what is not working, stop spending, period. And even then, I'll have a situation where we'll propose a project with a client and I'm looking at the numbers and sometimes I don't think it's going to work. Either their average sale is too low or the profit margin isn't big enough. And what they're going to have to spend to get a qualified lead turn into a qualified customer, the ROI isn't there.
I respect that, right? Like it's one of those things where in certain industries, I've seen it in podcasting where it's, hey, we're just going to get people in the door and we're just going to say yes and make as much money as we can. And it's a churn and they treat it that way. But to be like, no, you are a good fit for this. And I do see the value. And like, it's a partnership, right? Like marketing is a partnership. And I think people don't appreciate that enough at times. So I love that approach to like say no or to be at least questioning whether or not it's the right fit for someone.
At this point, all of my business is referrals. And to have a customer out there that's unhappy with what we did doesn't suit us at all. So I'd rather just pass on something that's going to make me a few bucks for the longer term goal.
Yeah. So with all of this, you're running a business, you're here at the club a lot. And with that, like sitting in on the Entrepreneurs Roundtable, what I love about it is you are so prepared for those meetings. You're very intentional with, here's what we're talking about. You've always got good follow-up questions for the guests that come in. And what I've noticed is you're very organized. So how does that come into play for you as a business owner?
Yeah, well, thank you for noticing those things because it's a lot of work. So quick background. We learned a lot of things through COVID. One of the things that I learned through COVID is I have, crippling ADD that went undiagnosed for 45 years. And the reason it went undiagnosed is because unlike most people with ADD, I found all these weird compensations to live with it, right? So whereas most people they're late for everything and they don't show up, I've got 3 different online calendars that keeps my whole life organized. So that's just an example of how I've compensated for it. But identifying it allowed me to get on the proper medication. And what was crazy is the amount of work that I get done now would take. So if I look at my daily output today, it would have taken me 2 weeks to get that much work done in the past.
Wow.
But I still have all these compensations that I've had to live with my entire life. And so now you're just doing more of those things. So it's like, okay, how do we get more efficient? How do we do things differently? So you look at other entrepreneurs, whether they have ADD or not. Entrepreneurs fail not because they're lazy, not because they're untalented. They fail because of the chaos. And it's really hard to keep everything organized. So for me personally, I've got crippling ADD. I go to 150 networking events a year. I'm managing a remote team of 5 people. But I also play 100 rounds of golf every year, and I probably watch 3 hours of television every night. So how do you do all that? Well, to be fair, I don't have kids, so that makes it much easier. But even still, I've had to develop these very intricate systems to automate a lot of my business and how we get things done. And what a big part of what we do, and what we mentioned, the automated sales assistant, is like, all right, how do I take what I've done for myself and how do I give that to other salespeople? How do I free up their lives? As a salesperson, can you imagine if you take 60% of your responsibilities away and now you just have this time? Well, if you're a lousy salesperson, you're probably going to watch cartoons. If you're a great salesperson, you're going to fill that time with the high value tasks that are going to get you more introductions, more consults, more proposals, and more closed deals.
When you're trying to think about those things, then I'm living in this chaos. It's all over the place, and I'm looking for things to automate. Where do you even begin with that?
Pretty much anything can be automated to a certain extent. I've only automated the sales process. So if you have salespeople or you're a business owner and you are engaged in selling, that can be made easier. There's all of those, so a typical sales process is introduction, consultation, proposal, close the deal. There may be some nuance in there, but in most instances, that's the sales process. So although that sounds incredibly simple, there's actually 50 steps to that process if you do it right, between the reminding of the meetings and the scheduling of the meetings and the following and the thank you email for meet. So what we did was we took those 50 steps and we said, all right, I can take 30 of these steps and the salesperson doesn't have to do them anymore. They're done. They're out. So now they just have to focus on these 20 steps, which are the ones that are most important, the ones that are the biggest revenue generators. If they can focus on those 20 steps and forget about the other 30, how much more productive can they be? How many more deals can they close and how much more money can they make?
Really sharp way of thinking about things. And that's why, I mean, I've been to out of any roundtable, I've been to the Entrepreneurs Roundtable. Like, that is number one on the list. And every time that I'm available, I go. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the way you run it. But for the people who have not been there and have not experienced it yet, just give them an idea of what happens at the Entrepreneurs Roundtable.
I love solving problems. That's why I'm good at what I do is like, give me a problem to solve. And that's what I like doing. So what I thought was, how about we take that approach in a meeting format and say, okay, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, we face problems 5 times a day. So, and a lot of us are facing the same problems. So what if we found people that are uniquely qualified to address those problems and have them bring information in for the entrepreneurs? An example would be, if you're an entrepreneur or even if you're a salesperson, your income is variable. You might make a lot of money this month and not a lot of money the next month. Well, how do you budget for that? Like, how do you know how much you can afford to pay for a mortgage? How do you know how much should you be saving? Well, I never knew the answer to that. So I brought a financial planner in that specializes in has a lot of entrepreneurs as clients. And he kind of laid out, okay, it is very difficult to budget when your income goes like, this. But here are some things that you can do to know what kind of lifestyle you can actually afford.
If I want to attend the Entrepreneurs Roundtable, learn more, or I want to learn more about ROI and just connecting with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
The Roundtable is at the Pyramid Club. It's the third Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. It starts sharp at 8 a.m. There is no networking before.
I can speak for that. It is absolutely true.
Yeah.
You're ready to go.
People sometimes think, oh, I can show, well, you missed half the meeting. And then if you'd like to speak with me, you can go to my website, www.roi-onmarketing.com. We talked a lot about our automated sales assistant. I developed a very scaled down version of it that automates part of the sales process that I give away to free for people. So if anyone is interested in our free automated sales pipeline, you can reach out to me right through the website and I'll be happy to shoot it over to you.
Great. So all interesting stuff. Glad we got the time to talk. Jason, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.